Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Krylik. I am president of the Springfield Township Historical Society, and today is May 6th, 2020, and I'm looking forward to our program this evening. But before we get to that, I would just like to make a couple of quick announcements. I want to ask you to keep your calendars free for November 4th. That's going to be the 8th annual History in Motion event, which is the Historical Society's primary fundraiser each year. We kind of missed it in 2020, but we had Nancy Moses at the beginning of 2021. That was our 7th annual event. So please leave your calendars free for November 4th. Our program has not been finalized at this point, but keep it on your calendars, it's coming. Okay, and then also this year it's time to have our annual elections. That we don't have them annually, actually. I guess it's every other year or so. But if you have anybody that you know that has an interest in history, and particularly in Springfield Township local history, and a passion for helping out, please contact us. We're looking for members of the board of directors, and we're always looking for sponsors to help with the Historical Society's activities and in the archives. So if you have an interest, please join us with those events and activities. And then the other thing I'd like to do is just acknowledge our sponsors for 2021 so far. We can always add more sponsors, so please consider that as a way to support the Historical Society. But I just want to point out our sponsors this year so far are Michael De Laurentiis for concrete work, BQ Basement Systems, Compass Real Estate, Krylik Conservation, Dan Helwig Realtors, Mara Restoration, Russell Roofing and Exteriors, and John F. Murray Funeral Home. And also a couple of board members were generous with their donations as well, Coxie Toogood, Katie Worrell, and Al Conley. So thank you to all of our sponsors this year. And please support their companies and their continued good work. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for this evening. Julie Slavet is Executive Director of the Tookany Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership, Incorporated. Julie has worked for the partnership since 2011. Previously, she served as Senior District Staff Member for Congresswoman Allyson Schwartz, leading constituent services and outreach efforts in a district of 650,000 people in Montgomery County in Northeast Philadelphia. Julie has worked at city and state levels of government and for a range of nonprofit organizations. And we're thrilled to have her with us this evening to tell us more about the Watershed Partnership. Julie.
Oh, thank you. It's always a little scary when someone says, "Now I'm making you the host." But thanks, Scott. That was great. You were wonderful and very calm, so that makes it a little easier. I just want to say, so again, I'm Julie Slavet from the Tookany Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership. And I want to say that the folks that have been reaching out to me asking for information and a photo and all that, Coxie and Katie, you have been wonderful. Thank you so much. It was really nice to have folks get in touch with me and ask for information and follow up. So you made me feel very special, and I really appreciate that. And I also want to just thank Ken, who I saw on this call, who I know suggested the TTF might be of interest to you guys. So thank you, Ken. I see you guys there. I'm glad you're on. Hi, Ann. And then it's also really fun to see my kids grew up in Jenkintown, and I haven't lived there for probably in that area for about 3 years. But it's also really nice to see. I always loved Springfield Township, and it's really nice to see Pete Wilson and Susan Ayers and my wonderful former colleague Joanne Olszewski. So it's really nice. I do miss Montgomery County. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the watershed's work. And one of the things that's sort of fun to sort of center this is I live in Center City right on the Delaware River. And I just drove home. I was just at an event at Glen Ford, which is a most wonderful place, right up on in the Northeast, right on the river, and below Bucks County. And it's a real gem. I don't know if anyone's been there. I know that you, as a historical society, I know that you folks know about that place. But I was there for an event for Riverfront North, which is the organization that's building the trail along the river. We work really closely with them because our trails connect and our missions connect. And, we are all, even though we're a small watershed, we are all really connected to the Delaware River. It's our historic river. It's really important for our economy. And it's something that, I think people really identify with the Chesapeake and the Great Lakes. And we need to make sure that we're all committed to making sure that the Delaware is brought back, is made even healthier, and that we talk about how important it is and what a historic river it is, and how important it is for recreation and the economy and all that. So it's interesting to think about that. So we're the Tookany Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership, and our mission is to connect our watershed residents and communities to their creeks. That's what we really try to focus on that and make sure that everything we do in some way is moving that forward. One of the things I do want to talk a little bit about is our name, which I think is pretty wonderful. So Tookany and Tacony come from the same Lenape word, which meant woods, which means woods or hidden place. And of course, in Montgomery County, we call it the Tookany. In Philadelphia, people call it the Tacony. It's from the same word. And then the creek becomes the Frankford Creek. And that's what the name of the creek is when it hits the Delaware River. The thing that's, that we face in terms of connecting people to their creeks is that in many places in our watershed, there are no longer creeks for people to see. So that's why these maps are interesting. So, the blue lines on this map show our creek systems. And in Philadelphia, there aren't any creek systems left. Our tributaries were put into pipes and culverted, and the main stems of our creeks were put within parks. So that, that really sort of makes our job harder. And, I think one of the things that we've learned is that many people don't even, folks who don't get to go to the Poconos or national parks on a regular basis, we don't get to see healthy creeks all the time. We're not in the Shenandoah or the Poconos, and our creeks really don't look like creeks anymore. They look like ditches because they're all impaired in this part of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has some beautiful, healthy creeks, but in southeastern Pennsylvania, we don't have those anymore. The map on the right shows our projects. So I'm not going to talk about those right now, but I just wanted you to be able to see all those dots and triangles show where TTF has planted trees, installed riparian buffers, restored wetlands. So we have projects all over the place, and they really are, you can see on the sort of top right, to the sort of right of Jenkintown there. Jenkintown is green. To the right is Abington. And then we have a lot of projects there because we focus on the Jenkintown Creek. So, one of our biggest challenge and the biggest challenge for creeks is runoff pollution. Sometimes we just call that runoff, but it's runoff pollution, and it's the rain that hits the ground and picks up a lot of dirt and oil and things that come off our cars and the salt from our roads. and brings that directly into our creeks. That has, as we have paved, and most of our communities are significantly paved. We know that, driveways, parking lots, roofs. This has gotten worse, you know, over the past 100 years as we've paved more. And the paving is what really creates this problem, because the water cannot infiltrate in the ground like it used to. And it turns, we know this, we see this in our communities, we see the volume and velocity of water in our creeks. And what that ends up doing is really impairing our creek banks. And we see this, you know, along the Wissahickon, the Pennypack, the Tookany in Cheltenham, and the Tacony in the city. This is really what our creeks look like, because what comes rushing down them just really erodes the banks. In Philadelphia, we also have a challenge that the runoff causes, which is that Philadelphia has combined sewage overflows. So Philadelphia has a combined sewage system, which means that the sanitary, 60% of the city is combined sewage, which means that the sanitary system and the runoff system, the stormwater system, are combined in certain places. So when it rains in Philadelphia, because of all the paving, the system cannot handle that. The wastewater treatment plants can't handle the runoff and the sewage. And when it rains in Philadelphia, combined sewage goes into a number of our creeks, goes into the Delaware River, goes into the Schuylkill, and this is T14, which is the largest sewage outfall in the city. This is the former Wingahocken Creek. So this is at I and Ramona in Juniata Park. What this has, so this was a creek. This was the Wingahocken, which, you know, starts near Aubrey Arboretum, and there's a little piece of it left. And it was a huge system. There were a lot of tributaries that ran into the Wingahocken, and it is now a huge sewage system, because that's what those creeks turned into. So this is enormous. And when it rains, that gate, which is called a Pelican Gate, comes down, and an incredible amount of you know, it's combined sewage, so it's not raw sewage, but that comes out of that pipe and goes into what is then called the Frankford Creek. So where the Wingahocken and the Tookany meet, that becomes that's now the Frankford Creek. So the city of Philadelphia is dealing with this in a lot of different ways. Some of you may have heard of Green City Clean Waters, which is the city's 25-year plan to solve a lot of the combined sewage overflows. And they're doing that with green stormwater infrastructure. So it's a very unique program. I'm happy to answer questions about it. But it's, you know, it's important to know about, because the green stormwater is important to know about. And it's also important to know that, in fact, 50 years after the Clean Water Act, combined sewage is going into our neighbors' creeks. And you know, this creek flows into the Delaware, and the Delaware is a source of drinking water for Philadelphia, as well as New York City. So what we do to sort of tackle these problems and to get our work done is we focus on education, stewardship, restoration, and advocacy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those, and then try to talk about some of the things that we do that are fun and creative, and I hope that you think that too. So these are just, you know, this is an example of the kind of education we do. You know, one of the things that we feel is that every project that we do, every you know, every tree that we plant, every buffer, every rain garden is an opportunity for education. So here on the left is, where is that? This is us installing a sign. I think that's at Abington Junior High School. So this is a sign that we installed. We have a really big buffer up at Abington Junior High School. That's the two branches of Bader Creek. And when we do a project like that, we make sure that we install interpretive signage. So this sign showed what the process was. So there were pictures of the kids that were involved in planting. You know, there's a very community focused. And you know, explain the process, the watershed, why this was important. And the other side of the sign included the kind of plants that were planted, pictures of the kind of plants. So the sign itself, whether we're there or not, there's still an opportunity there for education. And we have over 25 projects, so they don't all have this level of beautiful interpretive signage, I have to say that, but a lot of them have some signage, and it really, you know, it's a way to get people to stop and take a minute and learn about this. And we always make a big deal when we install signs. On the right, you can see something that's really fun, which is our Creekmobile. So in the city, we focus on Tacony Creek Park. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but we don't have an environmental center. So this is, it's a cargo tricycle. And we pull up, and people always ask us what kind of ice cream we have, because it's a big box. So it attracts attention immediately, and it opens up, and it has hands-on educational tools for kids. I mean, anyone could do this with anything. You could have a history cart, an art cart. You know, I saw these in museums and decided we needed to have one too. So there's a cornhole game with a map of the watershed. We have one game that I don't know if anybody has seen. What's it called? It's sort of a suitcase. It's a watershed model. I can't remember what it's called. So this has a watershed model in it, but it's very urban. So it shows, it looks like Philadelphia, and it shows what happens when it rains. By showing that trees, in fact, hold water. And if there isn't a tree, it runs into the sewer. It's very hands-on for kids. The most popular thing with this is a fishing game. So there's some fish that my staff made because they're very creative. You know, it looks, there's a dace and there's a chub and other kinds of fish. And then there's litter, you know, there's a snack bag and there's a plastic bottle. They have magnets on them, and kids have a fishing rod and fish. And when we, you know, they pull something up and we say, you know, what is this the kind of thing that should be in the creek? How long does this last? You know, how long will this plastic bottle be around? So it's very, it's a really great educational game, and it always attracts a lot of attention. And we bring that to community events. We try to get it out. It's a lot of fun. Then we're talking a little bit about stewardship. So, you know, stewardship is taking care of our world. And these things all sort of blend into each other. But this shows our amazing van, which is a great blue heron. It has a great blue heron painted on it. And this shows sort of our commitment to trees. So in Philadelphia, there's a program called Tree Philly. And, you know, everybody plants trees all over our communities, which is wonderful. You know, this is a region where we're trying to make sure that we get more trees planted. And we've used our van to deliver trees to people during the pandemic. Most of the time we do these tree giveaways and people come and get them. But during the pandemic, we needed to deliver them. And this is a way to really teach people about stewarding the earth. And it's a way, you know, they can do it in their own backyard with a tree. That seems like a first step. The bottom right is a project that just was recently finished at the Conklin Pool, which some of you may be familiar with, on Church Road in Elkins Park. And that is a wonderful project where we basically took a creek out of a half pipe. And a very big piece of equipment came and broke up the pipe. It was very exciting. And we turned the creek into a meandering stream and wetland. And that project is managing 40 acres of stormwater. And this is a family that came to help us plant. This got installed during the pandemic. We couldn't get in, we couldn't get into you know, the place was locked. It was really terrible. We couldn't get in. And then once things reopened, we planted in the fall. So we did some socially distanced planting, and these folks came out and planted with us. We, you know, generally, we don't, you know, volunteers can't do construction, but they can certainly plant. And we try to make sure that actual people are planting up all these projects. People love doing that, and it really helps with building stewardship. The next sort of project, the next sort of focus is restoration. I've talked a little bit about this already, We are part of something called the Delaware River Watershed Initiative, which is a William Penn Foundation program, an initiative to fund improvement projects all across the Delaware River Basin. So it's pretty interesting. There's a website called 4 States, 1 Source. And, you know, it's focused on runoff, agricultural runoff, and then preservation of, you know, the forests that are around, you know, in Callicoon and in places where the headwaters of the Delaware River are, to make sure that we're protecting those spots. So this is a picture, these are 2 pictures. The one on the left is a construction picture of a rain garden, a very big rain garden that we installed at a park in Abington, in Elkins Park, behind the McKinley Firehouse. So the Jenkintown Creek runs behind in a little piece behind that park from Cadwallader to the other street there, Osceola. So it's an area that really, a lot of water, a lot of runoff runs into that little creek. And the idea is that we are trying to improve our creeks as far up as we can. That's where it really makes sense to do that. So this became an incredible rain garden that really got taken over by cattails, but is still very beautiful. And on the right, this is, it's basically a bioswale, which means it's a trench with, you know, there's been, the dirt there has been remediated and taken out to make sure that things infiltrate and go into the ground. And then it's planted up with some really beautiful native plants. This is at Avelthorpe Park in Abington, where we are doing a lot of projects. And this, I think we planted 2,500 plugs there. They were all planted by citizens. And this is taking the runoff from that parking lot and cleaning it and slowing it down before it goes into the creek. And it's, you know, so it's something, it's a great spot because lots of people pass by there. And then I wanted you to see some more pictures of restoration. So one of those is the same picture, but let me see, the one at the top, the one at the top right and the bottom left are both the buffer at Ethel Jordan Park. So you can really see sort of over time how much bigger things get. And it's been really nice because we've really seen, I think our oldest buffer is at Abington, and it's probably 7 years old. And over time, we get to take off the deer fencing, and the trees get big and they do what they're supposed to do. I think the one on the left is that, that's what that rain garden looks like after construction. So you can see how it's all filled in there. You know, it gets planted with meadow grasses and with native flowers. And then we just have one really nice picture of a flower. We've also done restoration in people's backyards. So we have a program, we did a bunch of backyards a few years ago in Cheltenham. And now we have a program that focuses on people's properties near the Jenkintown Creek. So it's a very focused area. And we have a program called Stream Smart, where we go out and do an audit of somebody's property who was right next to the creek, whose property drains into the creek. And we've done some really nice projects in people's side yards and backyards to just, again, continue to capture that runoff before it enters the creek. And it's really fun to have, you know, people interested in this and really turning into ambassadors and telling their neighbors what they should all be doing. It's wonderful. And then advocacy. So, you know, we really believe that it's great to get people to change their behavior and to do the right things, to, you know, not buy plastic bottles and to not use too much salt and to try to conserve water and to pick up after their pets. But we really believe that collective action is what makes things change. It's very important. We all need to do this together and get our elected officials to continue to have strong environmental legislation, all that kind of stuff. So these 2 pictures, the one on the right is us at a legislator's office lobbying for on Delaware River Day on the Hill. And I can't remember whose office this is, but we brought some wonderful, we work with Cheltenham Elementary School and with some teachers there, and the students made some wonderful art that they wanted us to share with the legislators about how important their creek down the street is to them. And then on the left is some neighbors of Tacony Creek Park at a community meeting telling us what they care about, what they want to see. Whew, how am I on time, Scott?
You are fine.
Okay, good. All right, so that's, so I sort of wanted to give you the basics of what we do. I don't think I left anything out. Again, we are really a creation of the Philadelphia Water Department and its municipal partners and the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. And the idea was that we could work across municipal lines and bring people together to improve the watershed. So we use a lot of different tools for engagement, and I wanted to talk about these because I think they're fun, and I think that any organization can do this kind of stuff. We try to think out of the box, but I think some of these also relate to teaching people about history, their local history or whatever. We try to, get information out there and give people tools to do it on their own. So, we're all just really happy that we're getting on the other side of this pandemic. The party I went to was the first event that I have been to with other people. It was pretty incredible. People were outside without masks, and people were, we weren't giving each other a lot of hugs and kisses, but it was astounding. So it felt really great. And I think that one of the wonderful trends that we have seen is people really appreciating the outdoors more now than they ever did. Anyway, so we were faced with the pandemic, and our thing is to talk to people, to get out and talk to people and get them involved and connect with them. And it's really hard to do that when you can't connect with people. So we did a couple of things that I think were unique, but also can be transferred into other areas. One of them was, which is the bottom, which is we had people that contacted us and asked us if we could share cleanup tools with them. People wanted to know if we could get them a trash picker. And I was, my response was, yeah, what a great idea. We should definitely do this. So we put together cleanup kits that we got to people. We gave them a t-shirt, we gave them a map, we gave them bags and gloves. We tried to give them some swag so they could be really proud. And we ended up giving out about 100 of these. And the Fairmount Park Conservancy loved the idea so much that they replicated it. So we were very honored by that. And, we had folks all over, the focus was really our Philly neighborhoods, but we had people from all over our watershed that were interested in getting these because they were taking walks and they wanted to pick up trash while they were doing it. We gave about 30 of them to the graduating class of the Frankford Friends School. They wanted to give their graduating students something, and we provided these. We thought that was wonderful. Up on the right is just a scavenger hunt. So we use something called iNaturalist, which we think is about the best thing ever. It's a nature app. It's free, and it's curated by the California Academy of Natural Sciences. So anyone can do this. If I can do it, anyone can do it. You do it on your phone, you take a picture, you upload it, and then some scientist in the world tells you what the thing is that you took a picture of. What kind of, you have to take a decent picture, but birds, plants, crawly things, it's really wonderful. So we went to iNaturalist to pick out what were the easiest things for people to find. My staff really loves finding very rare things, but we want to find what's easy for people. We don't want to frustrate them. So we put together 2 of these kits that we made available, 2 of these pages we made available on our website, and we printed them and gave them out so that as people walked through the park, they could look for these things and cross them off. And these were really popular, and I think we're probably going to keep adding to this. And it's something families can do. You know, everyone was looking for stuff to do with their kids. And then on the left, we did a really wonderful series called Bring Us Along, Virtual Nature Tours. And when my staff first explained this to me, I really did not understand what they were talking about. But they used something called story maps, which is it's an ESRI tool. It's for mapping, GIS. And then they took videos as well. And this is an experience that you can have while you're sitting in front of your computer at home. You can walk through it. It takes you on a tour of five of our sites across the watershed. So 2 in Tacony Creek Park, and then Vernon Park, and then Abington Friends School and Ethel Jordan Park, which I mentioned. And this wonderful young man who's an environmental educator named Brandon takes you on this tour. It's really cool, and you can also take it on your phone. So you can walk along with your wife or your kids and do this tour and stop and then go and find out about a particular bird and then come back. So those are on our website. It was an incredible amount of work and ended up costing about twice as much as what we had originally planned, because we decided we wanted to make them really high quality and it took more time. But the great thing about these is that it's content. And we did this a year ago, and now we can promote these again. The same things are blooming in these places. So in May and June, there are two pieces of Tacony Creek Park that people can use. And I got a little ahead of myself. So again, our focus in the city is Tacony Creek Park, which is what's left of the creek system, so part of the Fairmount Park system. And the park itself runs from Cheltenham Avenue to Juniata Park along the creek. It has a trail within it, a circuit trail that now connects under Roosevelt Boulevard. So that was a very big step. The city made that investment. And the trail will connect all the way to the Delaware River along the Frankford Creek Greenway. So this is a 300-acre park, and it is a very neglected Philadelphia park. So you can see we have a beautiful picture on the left of what it can look like, and on the right you can see at the top the park is an area that sees a lot of short dumping, like many of our open spaces. And the bottom is a pretty incredible picture. That is right below Crescentville and Adams Avenue. That's below a railroad bridge, a SEPTA railroad bridge. And this shows what comes down the creek when there's a lot of water. So, this is what gets picked up and carried down. It's pretty astounding. So we focus on, we focus on Tacony Creek Park in the city. We have a contract with the Philadelphia Water Department for our work in that park. The Philadelphia Water Department has infrastructure. Its sewer system is under the creek. And the Philadelphia Water Department is supposed to be stewarding our creeks and making them cleaner. So that's sort of the reason why they support this work. The more people that use this park and enjoy it, the safer the city's infrastructure will be. We've done this work for about a little over 10, 11 years. And I have a staff of 3 that work in the park. And, we focus on, again, education, stewardship, restoration, and advocacy. We do a lot of cleanups and plantings. We have a friends group that we support. We do a lot of art projects. We really focus on what people tell us they're interested in and how we can engage people. So you guys already got to see the Creekmobile, but here it is again. I think it's really fun. You can see, so there's the fishing game on the left. And on the right, you can see we took it, it was part of Juniata Day, which is a parade. So we bring that on for that parade. It brings attention to what we're doing. And then we use, as I said, we try to use whatever we can to get people interested and excited. A really positive step to share is that we just got a master plan process funded. So the park has not had a master plan for 20 years, and it's never had a plan that really focused on community engagement, getting people back involved, all the kind of community connections. So we're really excited. That was funded by the state. The match funding came from a couple of foundations, and we are kicking that process off this month to start that master planning process. But this is a project we also did during the pandemic. We had a little funding left over from a grant, and we wanted to do something to get people that would connect with people on the trail, but that wouldn't be a program that staff would have to be at, because we didn't want to endanger people. So we worked with a local artist, that's Jay Coriano, he's on the right. We had met him through another project that we did, and he created 6 wildlife murals along the trail, actually on the trail itself. There weren't a lot of surfaces that we could paint on. So we came up with 6, we walked with him, we came up with 6 places that we thought could use a little love. And he was out there, one-on-one, talking Spanish to everybody that went by, asking them what kind of animals they were interested in. I am not a process person, I like to get stuff done. But the way he did it was so much better. So, he actually hadn't decided on the last couple of murals. He wanted to hear what people were interested in. So you can see on the left, he did, there's a lot of flowers that took a really long time. There's black-eyed Susans and there's violets at that site. And then he did 2 of the murals include babies. So there's a turtle and there are frogs. And the idea was that kids could take chalk and fill them in. So you can see him here with somebody. And then there's a very big deer right at the bottom. And he has come back this spring to refresh these. They ended up with a lot of dirt on them from erosion. I think we'll keep them for this summer, and then we'll need to figure out something else to do. And we created a really nice booklet with a map, so that people can go into the park and look for these with their kids. We knew, going back, we knew that this was successful when people started telling us, oh, I meet my friend at the turtle, or I meet my friend at the fox. So it became, we hadn't even thought of that it would sort of be these kind of, that it would create a place for people to meet. So we were really happy with that. So I think I have talked for long enough. I wanted to give you a sense about what we do, and then an idea about some of the, sort of more recent kind of interesting projects that we had. So there's my last slide with all of my contact information. Ken Kaloje, did I miss anything? He's muted.
I'm still looking for pictures of the artist from Seattle with the using invasives to create artwork.
So those, so thank you, Scott. I hope that's okay. I know I went out of turn.
No, absolutely.
This was a project that was very recent, that we're part of a coalition of environmental centers called the Alliance for Watershed Education. And through that project, which is all about environmental education around the Delaware River, we got to work with an artist from Seattle named Sarah Cabbage. And she's doing these projects all over the basin where she's using natural materials to make art in the park. And Ken, it's called the Lene Lenape-Hoking Project. And Ken came out to help us because we had to pull invasives off a bunch of trees to get the materials for her to make the project. And we did that with volunteers, and then she had a couple of assistants that she worked with, and she basically wove what looks like a scarf from branches. It's in a tree, And then she took she made sort of a fan that went on the back of a park bench. So those pictures are on our website and our Flickr page. I can send you the link.
And Julie, you might be able to see these other questions in the chat. Dorothy asks, how are you getting the word out about your group? Does TTC have a presence at the flower show?
Oh, interesting. So we get the word out by doing things like this. We are very active on social media. So we have everything. We have a LinkedIn group, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have a very active website, Facebook. We post blogs all the time, which are sort of news about what we're up to. We have an e-newsletter that we send out once a month to everyone on our list. That just went out. It goes to about 7,000 people. And again, we talk to everybody. One of the things that we do within Tacony Creek Park is we use lawn signs a lot. I come, as you heard, I have a political background. So I have always loved lawn signs. So we put lawn signs out for programs to educate people. That's one thing that we use. I think that's sort of a lot of it. Oh, and the flower show. So we've always had a relationship with the Horticultural Society because we have, many goals in common. And we don't have a presence this year, but in the past, we've done different kinds of presentations. And the year that they focused on water, was that 2 years ago? We actually brought the Creekmobile to the flower show, which was, and I got to tell you, those PHS people are incredible. We were there for about 5 days and we were exhausted because you were on your feet for hours, but we talked to so many people. It was really fun. So hopefully we'll get to do that again. So one of the things I did want to mention, salt is a really bad thing. And we really oversalt because everybody's worried that they're going to get sued. And there are, there's guidance out there for municipalities to use less salt. We have been involved in, we have stream keepers who are citizen monitors. They have participated with the Isaac Walton League in a program called Salt Watch, which is really cool, where people go down to the creek with I think it's just a stick, and figure out how bad the salt is, and it's really bad. So one of the things that you can do, and I have some fact sheets that I can share, is you should talk, you live in Springfield Township, and Springfield Township is a tiny piece of the Tookany. So that was one of the things I wanted to mention. We're really not your watershed. You are really a Wissahickon community. We have such a tiny spot for Springfield, but we do try to make sure we update elected officials about what we're doing. So one thing that you should do is, talk to your, are they called supervisors? Commissioners, so they're commissioners. I mean, I would, if you're concerned about that, you should talk to your commissioners. And I can share information that you can share with them. But one of the important things to share with you is that since you're in the Wissahickon, you should reach out to what's the former Wissahickon Valley Watershed Association, which is now Wissahickon Trails, and they can provide assistance for the township about that.
Okay.
I mean, it's funny because we're a watershed organization that's more like a friends group, but Wissahickon Trails is a land trust. So they actually own property. We don't own any property, but they also serve as a watershed organization. So even though, they're stewarding land and trying to add to their land and get people out on their trails, they are also very involved in water quality issues. And they are working with Springfield Township and 12 other municipalities in the watershed as part of the Wissahickon Clean Water Partnership.
Okay.
So
I know that Springfield uses brine for the salt
yeah,
distribution.
that's great.
Is that better than solid state or solid salt?
Yes, brine is actually better.
Okay.
Brine is better. So anyway, so you know, one of the things that, since you're a majority Wissahickon community, is to work with the Wissahickon, and you know, they would love to help you with you know, working with elected officials in Springfield Township and trying to educate people about things like salt. They provide they have a lot of resources. They are also part of the Delaware River Watershed Initiative.
Okay. Any other questions for Julie?
If this is Coxie, Julie.
Hi, Coxie.
Hi, Julie. I am interested in specifically what we as citizens of Springfield Township should do individually to help our whole water system get clean.
So I think, you know, one of the things that, whoops, I just found another link. Now I'm going to just keep doing this because it's so much fun. You know, I think being involved citizens, which you already are, and talking to your elected officials about how important clean water is to you. I mean, Springfield is beautiful and has a number of creeks, and you know, so I think educating yourselves, you are more than welcome to attend programs that we do. The Wissahickon actually has a volunteer monitoring program just like we do. So if you're really interested in supporting getting information about your creeks, you could become, I don't know what they call them. I think they call them creek watchers and we call them stream keepers. So those are a couple of things you can do. You know, less salt, picking up after your dog, using fewer, you know, fertilizers on your lawn, using less water. Everybody should have a rain barrel. You should all be planting native plants. There's really a lot that you can do, and it's amazing how much information is out there. I am happy to send more stuff to you, but you know, there's Audubon does a wonderful job about native plants, and native plants are wonderful because they suck up more water, but they also provide habitat for birds and wildlife. You know, so a lot of these things have multiple benefits.
Thank you.
I hope that was a good answer.
That was a good answer. It gave me some good ideas.
Oh, good.
Okay. Any other questions then for Julie?
Julie,
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joanne.
I want to say, you know, thank you so much. I really didn't know where you were doing your thing after the politics, but it seems like you interact a lot with Philadelphia, and because you're part of that system. So my question in a way has been answered, because you do interact with, I will always call it the Wissahickon Valley Watershed Association. I know they changed their name,
Right.
and I wasn't in favor of them changing it to Wissahickon Trails. I thought before it was more descriptive of what the organization actually did. We are so fortunate in Springfield that we have Hillcrest Pond down in Erdenheim,
Yep.
and Cisco Park.
Yes.
I have to say, from the time I was a little girl, in the middle of the night, my father would get up and go out and take water samples at the Wissahickon Creek. And it was the International Geophysical Year, which was, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago. And he would go out and then he would, send the samples away. And he was one of the founding members of the Wissahickon Valley Water Association.
Oh,
I don't think it would be politically correct these days, but he had a full buckskin outfit with a full Indian headdress, and he
wow.
would go to all of the environmental fairs as chief clean water. So the fact that my husband and I and my daughter and the family is still involved with Friends of Hillcrest Pond at Cisco Park, one of the things over the years, it used to be so difficult to get any money from the state or from the county or from the township to do anything down at Hillcrest Pond. And all of a sudden, the big thing now is people being woke. I didn't even know what that meant, but environmentally, it seems to me that people actually do care about it, because we are so fortunate to have the pond down there, and people, the residents, look at the pond and the park area more for the socialization and what they can do there. They don't look at it so much as the environmental importance of Paper Mill Run, and the pond is actually a very important flooding holding area when we do have high water. And it's very, when you're really, really involved with environmental projects like that, you look at people that they come and they use the walking trail or something, but they're not really thinking of the environmental importance and how fragile these systems are, and that it's one of the things we should be taking care of, number one, more than some of the other organizations that all do good things, but the water system and the water supply is just so important. And I think people kind of look at it as a boring thing, but it can be so exciting. And that's why all of the programs that you do are so fabulous. Do you share these things with Wissahickon Valley, or?
Yeah, we do. So Joanne, thank you so much for saying such a nice thing. I feel like I ended up in a wonderful place. And this is, probably my last job. I hope I get to retire at some point soon. But I feel like I ended up in such a great place for me. And it's just been wonderful. So what were we just talking? So one interesting idea to think of for the park there is, like I was saying, now that people are just getting out so much more and walking. And, I don't know if there's any interpretive signage at Cisco Park, but, you could create some kind of nature trail there with very simple signage for families, for people to think about. That's just one idea. But we work really closely with the Wissahickon. They do wonderful, they have a lot of things we don't have. They have a facility. They certainly have more, they are much better funded than we are. So we do similar things, but we share information with them on a regular basis. Sometimes we do programs together. So we have our Stream Keepers program. We have about 30 volunteers. They probably have twice as many, but we do education together with them. So, like with the Salt Watch, our volunteers and the Wissahickon volunteers participate in that together. They do seminars online together. So that's one thing that we definitely do. And I get to see Gail Farmer a few times a year in meetings, because again, we're part of the same sort of coalition. And I emailed her before this meeting to just say, I want you to know I'm doing this. If anybody asks me what's going on with the Wissahickon partnership. So we really try to support each other. And one of the things I feel like it's sort of, this comes from working for an elected official, but we're very geographically focused. So it's so funny when you work for a member of Congress, you focus on your district. And the guy next to you is focused on his district. And I feel like very much that way about watersheds. People sometimes contact us about projects and we generally send them If they're in the city, we send them to the wonderful Friends of the Wissahickon. And if they're outside the city, we send them to the WVWA.
One of the things that we did down at Hillcrest Pond, which was really interesting, we had a member of the Park and Rec Board at one point in time who had a daughter that was blind, and she took it upon herself to do the sensory garden.
Oh,
And
that's
it was,
wonderful.
I would say it was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet. And it was full of all different kinds of plants that you could touch and feel and learn about. If they were with someone that could, you know, tell them what it was, but they could feel, they could take a leaf off and smell mint, and all these different things that were in the sensory garden. How, you know, because some plants feel like, I think there's something called rabbit's ears or something. There's these plants that feel
nice.
so interesting. And I thought for a blind person to be able to experience that at a local park, they've been keeping it up as best they can. But gosh, there's just so many things that you can do for so many people to make a park a better experience.
Right. That sounds like such a wonderful thing. One thing that we've noticed is how many people forage. So
Yes.
the neighborhoods, the zip codes that we're in Philadelphia are 19120 and 19124. So Lawncrest and Feltonville and Juniata and Frankford and Olney. I mean, there are neighborhoods that with a lot of different languages, a lot of challenges, you know, not a lot of income and resources, and very diverse. And we've are looking at doing some kind of foraging program, because we've seen all different kinds of people picking all different kinds of stuff in the park. So, you know, I've talked to a Korean man who picks mugwort. People eat mugwort. Mugwort is everywhere. People pick stinging nettles and use that. It's really an interesting thing, and you have to be really careful. But you know, we're trying to think of how all different kinds of people use nature, and that's the same sort of with the garden for somebody blind. I mean, sometimes you have to do something, you have to really pay attention and think about how other people interact with nature.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, thank you for those great questions, and I'd like to thank Julie once more. Thank you for joining us this evening, and for a great program. Very much appreciated. And thank you to everybody that attended this evening. So again, Julie put some links in the chat, so check those out. And her contact information, I think, is still on the screen there. So please connect with the Watershed Partnership. Okay, so thank you again, everybody, for coming this evening. I hope you have a pleasant rest of your evening, and we'll see you next time.
It was nice to be with all of you. Don't hesitate to reach out.